I'm just going to take this blade, and these are, I believe, glued on, cemented on, so I'm going to see if I can separate from this welt and then get enough that I can just maybe start peeling it back. I was thinking about putting a little bit of thinner on there to loosen the glue. If I wind up needing to, I will, but I'm guessing that once I get it started, we can probably, yeah. We should just wind up, when this is all pulled off, with just basically this top, the upper left, get it? All right, the upper remaining, and then we'll just have to rebuild everything below it, which is good, because then we can make it exactly to fit. So either I'll ruin it or I won't. And I do have my cut gloves on. I got these at, I don't know, hardware store, I don't know which one. Probably Westlake. They're supposed to keep you from cutting yourself if you slip. So we're just going to try to avoid slipping to test that theory. But this top being all chewed up right here, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to make a nice little beading around here again. There we go. Oh, okay, I see. What it is there's a canvas on the bottom of here. On the bottom, looks like canvas. And on top of the sole is this tan colored fabric, which apparently sticked out beyond that, and it was brought up and okay, so this was stitched down and then this was glued onto it. Okay, so basically there's probably no pulling it loose from the canvas. It's stuck too good, which is alright, because as nasty as the insole was, not nasty, but just as worn out as it was, we may just as well have as much new footbed as possible. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of carefully cut along the entire edge. Get in there and cut to that canvas, I guess. I have never taken a pair of Uggs apart before in my life. It seemed like a good thing to do today. I don't know if you can see this or not. I'm just going to slice this. Keep the point of my knife down to the sole area as much as possible. Keeping a little tension on that. It's interesting. They put some foam like here in the heel, and then at the ball of the foot. Not very thick foam. Just a little bit more. No wonder these Ugg boots hold together so good. Honestly, I was hoping to be able to get it started and just pull on it and it would peel off and leave more of the midsole in there, but that ain't how it worked. Which is okay, because then we have all brand new, or as much new as we can get. Okay. There's... Alright, I've decided instead of trying to cut the sole from the midsole, which is just whip stitched by a machine along here, I am going to cut the threads that hold the midsole on, just rip that seam, and then just start all new down here. So guys, basically here's where we start. I started right here and got a spot through the sole where I could where this binding that's just stitched down on there, cloth binding, was, so I got it apart so I could see where the midsole and the upper stitch down, and then I'm just going to, see, I already started this around, just going to work around and cut those stitches. Give them some pressure on it. Right there, that seam is a little stiff, a little tight. But I want to make sure that I'm not cutting into my upper, the leather on my upper. I don't want this piece, this part right here. I want to make sure I don't cut into it. So I need to be somewhat careful. I'm going to go ahead and pull that binding. Okay, that's why, because it overlapped the binding right there. So that's probably why it was a little tighter there. I'm basically here, I'm getting all the way through from the inside. You can see, I'm just ripping a seam. And you can see, luckily, I am not cutting the upper. I'm just cutting the threads, which wouldn't surprise me if I would slip up and cut my upper, but I'll be careful. I'm trying to. Yeah, look at that. thought that was a whip stitch, but it's apparently a lock stitch of some sort. Now I can clean this up in here, pull all these threads out. I turn these inside out so I can clean off all the lint, the sock lint. And look and see if I see any seams that are ripped or not good. Needs some attention. Everything doesn't look bad at all, so you can just pull these out. I'm going to do it with a trash can so it doesn't make a mess, but you just grab them with your fingers and pull them out. I'm going to have to figure out how to get this nice and clean. Anyway, to clean this I'm just going to use a brass brush and just kind of brush out all the lint and whatever. Basically like combing a dog or a sheep. I'm going to do that on this and this. Sweep up the floor, clean up the mess, and then we'll go from there. Alright, these are cleaned up. And I'm going to turn them right side out here in a minute. This is the pattern. This is what we're going to use for the bottom. And here is the old. We could, if a person was absolutely happy with this particular shape, this width and length, we could just use this as a pattern. However, we want a little wider. These are plenty long, so there's going to be enough to move into our new pattern, our new shape, and when we sew it down. So this piece here will be the insole, or the inside. So I will cut a piece of shearling to match this precisely, and this piece here are leather that we're going to use on the bottom for our midsole. I'm going to measure this, and then I'm going to cut another piece of this that is, you know, however many, 5 millimeters or whatever this width is, wider, and then I will use that to cut a piece of leather, and then we can cement our shearling to the leather piece, and then we can start stitching down our upper to this freshly built piece, and then we will be able to cement on some brand new soling. So I have these calipers, and I just set them to the width a couple of places where it looks like I have some real good place to measure, and whatever that happens to be, I will transfer on the outside of that. But I'm just going to measure. I'm guessing, well, if I'd have guessed 5, I'd have been wrong. It looks like it's about 7 millimeters. Yep. This is just a folder, a hanging file folder. Since most places don't do a lot of stuff now, everything now is stored on digital storage, so these are easy to find everywhere. You might even have some at work. Ask your boss, and they may just let you have a handful of these, but they really make nice little templates. So I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to go score around here. We got our template now. This is going to be the shearling that goes under your foot, and this is going to be the leather midsole that stitches down here. And so we will put these two together, and then we'll put our sole on. So looks like we want to avoid here. We want to avoid that. I want to avoid here, just because the whatever this shearling stuff, this wool, is not there. This is the corner that on the other side we looked at, so we need to stay in to avoid this and to avoid that. And so these pieces I'm just going to mark them on the back side. I have this, it's white. It writes in kind of a white color. And I'm going to mark that, so I know that this isn't a good spot to get. And right here, kind of avoid that and see where we want to go. I'd like to not waste any more of this than I have to, so I'm going to try to position this and then I'm just going to mark around it, and then I'll just take scissors and cut it out. So that looks pretty good. We have a bad cut there. And when you cut these, they get all these little fuzzies on them. So you just go along and you can clean them up. Whatever's already cut loose will fall off. You may have to come along on the top side and trim some to clean it up nice. Not that it would really matter on this because it's probably going to be in the bottom of your shoe, but as we're gluing it down, we would like it to be kind of nice. So I'm just going to kind of trim. Trim it off all the way around, and I have this. And it will be underneath this and between this and our sole material. So I'm going to cut some pieces out of this. This is bigger stuff. I have enough in here probably to get easily. I can easily get 2 pieces out of this. You see what I just did? I didn't flip my pattern over when I cut these, so now I have a spare one of these. So anyway, I'll cut this one out correctly, then I'll be back and I'll recut this to fix this issue because I need it to be like that. So anyway, got rid of my problem here by making 2 the same foot. So now here's what we got. My plan is to get this set where it needs to be. I'm gonna take this and kind of ballpark it where it needs to be, and then I'm going to cement these together. Sanded both this side, and I kind of roughed up this side. This is pretty rough anyway. It's that kind of a rough out material, the flesh side, but anyway, because this is where the sole's going to go, and we want the glue to hold real good. Scuff this up. I didn't scuff the bottom of this. I think I will lightly. Now I'm going to mark this around the outside so I can see where to basically line up my insole, or that insole piece, that shearling. These are definitely going to be lighter than those others, I would think. Maybe not much, but they're definitely going to have more a thinner sole and no lift in heel, and wider. Okay. I'll get my glue, my cement, and I'm using Emu glue. It's just rubber cement. Works good. So I'm gonna put some cement on this side, here. Let it get relatively tacky, like 10 minutes, and then set it down. Sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue clear out to the outside. Doesn't matter, because when I put the uppers down on here, we're going to glue that as well, or at least that's my thought right now. Never done this before on these, but I'm going to put some cement all the way on here. We'll line this up to our little score marks so we're as centered as possible. I will go ahead and I'll put on the uppers. I'll go ahead and put some cement on here. Get them up here where you can see them. Put some cement around on the bottom. And let that get tacky. And then stick it down on here. So there's nothing really special about putting on glue. Just put a layer of glue on cement. Just make sure it's just even, the whole thing. And I'm just going focus. I'm just going to come along and just put just a little bit of glue along on the heel, I think. So that'll, when I can set that down on there, and then that'll stay in place. I don't think I'm going, at this point I don't know if I'm going to glue or cement the whole thing around. I don't know. That may cause me more trouble than I want. Getting it to stay where I want and not, I don't know. I'm going to try it and see what happens if I just do this, the heel. I'm going to go all the way around like this. Okay, I put just a little bit of cement around here on the uppers, on that 6-7 millimeter, whatever it was we measured, where we cut all that stitching loose before. I put it on both sides. I didn't really, this has got a lot of that shearling there, but I don't really care. Just as long as it sticks, it holds enough for a little bit to stay in place, then I'm going to sew around the whole thing. But I think that having that cement hold it while I try to sew around it is probably my best bet. I'm sure there's probably people that can do better than that without sewing or putting cement on it, but I don't think I'm that person. So we're about ready on these to stick these down anyhow, at least this one. So I'm going to try. I'm going to have to vacuum the dust out of these before I put them in. Set it down. Try to get it to, oops, to fall in my lines that I scratched in there. There's one. a little bit tacky. If this was going to be an outsole, I think I would let this cement dry just a little bit longer. I think it would. Oops. Almost got that one crooked. Yeah. Is that right? I don't know. Yeah, the buttons will be on the outside. So, I'm just going to try it like this. Because the heel is going to be roughly the same width. The only difference is going to be at the toe, because we're changing the toe box thickness on this. I may not put much cement on it. I didn't put a lot of cement on here. I'm just pinching it down, pinching it together, trying to keep the outside edges the same as I go. Looks like I'm doing a fairly decent job so far. And it looks like these again. Squeeze this real good all the way around. Then I'll go work on that other one. I do have a post bed machine that I could use, but I'm not going to, because I want this to be that you can do this project by hand with minimal tools and still have a decent job. I could use this. I have a speedy stitcher you could use to hand sew this. I'm not going to. I'm going to use, I have a all handle with a needle, And I'm going to use this to sew around there with this white string. It's a waxed string. And this is just a general rule of thumb. If you go, and I know it usually winds up being way more than I need string. So I think I do 4 ballparks of trips around. So there's 1 full trip, 2, 3, and something like this will make it 4. Then we thread our needle. And then get the midpoint on the halfway through length of the thread. Okay. And I'm going to start here in the center on the arch. And there was a little, tiny little sticker, little pink sticker they had put in there. And I'll bet you that's where they started with their machine when they start sewing these down. I don't know, but it was there. I peeled it off. So I'm just gonna poke this through. And then I'm going to pull the can. That's tight. There we go. So now I have a string on the bottom and a string on the top. There. And I'm going to go the direction of the needle has a slot in it, a groove that the thread lays down in when you push it into the through the through the leather. And the reason for that is it allows it to slide through the leather easier. So I just hold my fingers on either side where I'm going to poke this through, and I'm going to go in where there's already a hole. I'm going to go about right there, about 1/4 of an inch probably, and poke it through. This is going to be quite a while to do because it's hard to poke through. So now we have, as we pull it back, it makes that loop. So then you just take your piece on the bottom and just poke it through like that. That way you don't have to go clarifying the tail on it. And then pull it back through and give it a little tug. And we have our very first stitch. So now repeat the step. We want the groove where the thread goes. We want it on the right side, or the side that we're stitching to, which happens to be the right. I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch, find a hole where they've been, and push it through. Pull it back like that until we get that loop. Push it through. Somehow I think I've got not enough string. Hope I'm right or wrong, but Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way around. It's exactly the same way as these first 2 stitches. Well, I was hoping to be able to see stitches a little better, a little more visible, but I can't. So I'm going to stitch around, and then I'll catch up with you guys when we finish up, and we'll tie it off. Okay, I've got a significant amount of this stitched. You can see I have to finish up to here. I think we're going to be lucky and have enough string left over. So what I've been doing is, you can see, is I've been going, the stitch holes that they put in, I've been going roughly about 2 of their stitches and then poking it through. You know, I keep this slot, this groove in the needle in the direction I'm going, and sometimes I used one of the holes that was already there, and other times I won't, just based on what it looks like, what the leather looks like where I'm coming through. So if it looks like it's, you know, it could pull out, I will maybe go back just a little bit further behind it, the original hole, where I can get a good solid amount of leather. I don't pull it too tight because this is not very heavy up here, just snug. So I'm going to continue on doing this, and you can just hook your finger under here, you know, where you can see you're not going to poke yourself, and then use that for leverage to pull with your finger to push through. This yellow leather is relatively hard, actually, and just give them a little pull. Okay, now here's our stitch, and there's our first one. So we are 1 stitch away from touching our original start point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch that where we went into the very first needle hole. We're going to come back through that, push through, and catch this as a stitch, and pull it back. So now we've completed the circle all the way around. We're into our very first hole where we very first started. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back 1 step backwards, and I'm going to turn the needle so the groove is facing the direction we're going to stitch, because now we're going to back stitch, and I'm going to push it through. And then our goal is to get this string down here on the bottom. Pulled through just like what we did on the top. So, or the first start, I mean. And it's going to be pretty stiff. Get something to get in there to get a hold of, maybe. There it goes. Pull our needle out. and here's the bottom, and I'm just going to tie this with an overhand knot. Or a knot. I don't know if it's an overhand knot or, but that's what I'm going to call it. And then cut it off. Mark my sole where I'm going to want to put my shoe. So what I've done is I've got on my template marked the line down center, close to center. Here is my center from toe to heel, right here. And there's a, in the center, I took this and lined my Vibram emblem up right in the center of this. So I know where that's at because I want that in the center of my sole. I've got the center on my heel. There's a pencil mark here, and I put a ruler along that line that lines up with that, and in the center on the sole right here I have a mark, and I line that up, and that's what I'm going to call, what I'm going to mark, I'm calling that good. So now I'm going to take a pin, and I should have sanded this before. I didn't. I'm going to mark it since I got it laid out. If we got to touch up our pin after we sand, I will. But this is where we're going to put our glue, our cement, and how we're going to line our shoes up to make sure that they're perfect on both shoes. Good enough. And like I said, I forgot to sand it first, because if we don't sand it, it will not stay, guaranteed. So I'm going to sand this one, sand this other one, get it laid out and marked, and then we've already roughed the bottoms of these yellow parts up, roughed them up. I may just kind of look and see if it looks like there's anything that's not, rough it a little bit, then we're going to cement and see if we can do a good job. Pretty well scuffed up. I think that'll hold. I'm gonna do the okay, both of them are marked. Now, the goal will be glue or cement, and then set this down, and be able to work this down the entire way. And stick it in place. I'm going to go a little past my pin marks just in case I get a little off on my putting this down. Then it'll at least hold. It won't want to lift up on the edges. So worst case is my sole isn't perfect, which I've only gotten, I think, a couple that are, I think, really, really good. And then the others are, they're off. But practicing, keep doing it, keep trying to do better each time, and each time does get better. And I'm going to say that the last soles that I put on were really good. They turned out really well. The ones before that, not so much. So, I mean, they turned out fine, but the pattern was off, which really ain't going to make much difference, but there's one of them. That cement on there that's drying. There's the other one. Cement on it drying. And then our soles. Alright, this is just barely tacky. Now I'm going to try to line them up. As you can see, it's kind of curled here, so I'm going to, as I start putting it down, I'm going to have to take my hand and make sure everything goes down nice and smooth. I have this here. Probably when I get done, I will stick the boot on there and hammer away on it. I'm probably not going to do that until I get them both on. So let's start. I'm going to try really careful. Hopefully I can get a good job. So, it's light. I should have probably marked the center on here. There's my center. We're not going down exactly like I wanted. And not bad. But not boy. I don't know if I can. Well, we're off a little bit. I don't know if you can see. But it feels like it's all really good and tight down there. Okay, we got one. So let's see what happens. Worst case is they're off enough that they look ridiculous. And in that case, then we just don't look at the bottom of them when we're walking, right? And you can see, you can just take the scissors, a good pair of shears, and cut these. If you try to hold your scissors straight up and down, then you can get a relatively nice straight cut. You got to kind of fold this over and watch that you don't cut your upper material as you're going along. Anyway, so anyway, I'm going to cut these two out, and then I'm going to take these pliers and I'm going to go along and squeeze this real good. And I have this little knife. It's Osborne. No, U.S. machine. Yeah, it's a U.S. machine. And it's got a little, it cuts right here on this part here. And then it's got this to keep you from cutting into something you shouldn't, like your finger or your sole. Now I'm using that in this section here because I can't really get in here with the scissors. So, and it's, you just kind of slowly just work it along. And you can just kind of follow. You can just follow the midsole or the welt or whatever you want, whatever you're cutting along. And just, this stuff pulls pretty easy. Oops, got a little deep there. So that's what we're looking like. I don't know about that yellow yet. But anyway, so I'm going to take these pliers, go along here, squeeze all of this. That'll do it. Don't have a lot to clean up, just a few little spots, so. Look at that. Not bad. Not good. There. That's why I think I should hammer this. There's that glue. Now I think we have us a resoled Ugg boot. A little bit of time, clean up a few little bits and pieces here, and we're good. I'm going to take the Dremel, touch this up a bit, go around, squeeze the corner around again, stick it on this thing and hammer it. And I'm just using a brass brush. And you just go one way, all the same way, and you just pretty aggressively just brush, and you can really clean up suede really good like that. That's what I was doing on this one. Finished it up. I don't know if it looks any better. It didn't look bad. But right up here, there was a big stain, and up here, I think it was somewhere up in here, there was kind of like a, not a big stain, but like water stain or something. So this is what I'm doing, just like this, and it seems to do a good job. It just, I think what it does is that suede, that hide, gets matted down, and crud and dirt and stuff and oils get into it. Yeah, right here is kind of a little stain. Get into it, and this kind of combs it out, and decided that I should take some edge dye and go along and get this yellow. It'll soak into that yellow real well. Dye it. It's a, I think it's a water base. It washes out of the brush real easy with it in the sink, but it seems to really soak into leather really well. So I'm going to go all the way around with this. And there we have it. We finished it. I like the white stitches. The edge dye covered up the yellow midsole nicely. March red matches up really nice. Brushed the suede out. Looks good. The new midsole and insole, so now it will be able to break in for a different foot. Bought these off of eBay for $6 plus $15 shipping. So I think they look almost as good as new, but they have the thin sole that my wife wants. So I'd say it's a success. Really didn't have any idea when we started on this how it was put together when I ordered them even, but I knew that there had to be a way to resole them. and make them work. And we did. Thanks to you guys' help, your ideas. Anyway, thank you much for watching.